China's imports and exports both forecast to climb. Let's get more on this data as we await for it. And let's get the insights from Yao Wei. Wei is a China economist at Societe Generale. Okay, we haven't got the number yet. It's notoriously kind of unpredictable when it comes out. Well, you know, what's your view on where we are with this? Because at the beginning of the year, we saw some huge skews in data, didn't we, which have been turned out to be invoices, double accounting, etc.
Yeah, after squeezing out all those irregularities, we can see actually the trade growth of China isn't really strong, actually quite in line with the weakness in the other economies of the region. So basically our judgment is that China's trade, especially external demand for Chinese goods, is far from strong. So that actually supports the overall view that the economy is growing quite weak by China's standard.
Yeah, well, you know, with that in mind, we saw in June a surprise in both imports falling back and exports also falling there. We're expecting a turnaround from that. But what did those numbers tell you?
We suspect that maybe some overcorrection in the data, but it does suggest that now China is suffering from both investment slowdown, consumption slowdown, as well as trade slowdown. So from a cyclical policy view, that the government does need to do something to support the growth.
Did have a guest on earlier suggesting that China's looking at the possibility here right now, and they're forecasting that they could see a cut in the reserve required ratio. Do you think that is something that you foresee as well this year?
Not really, but the reason is not because it's not necessary. It's because the PBOC actually has other tools. They can conduct reverse repo operation, which is also injecting liquidity into the market, and it gives them more flexibility. So it means that even we.
But that's stimulus in all but name, isn't it?
Yeah, the nature is the same. So actually we think required reserve ratio is not necessary, although they can do it. But overall, yes, they will have to inject liquidity just to offset the impact of capital outflows.
When you say when it's not necessary, they have other tools. You know, inflation's been creeping up a little bit, hasn't it? And is that a concern for them?
I think inflation it will rise mostly because of the base effect. The underlying demand is weak, which doesn't put a lot of demand pull pressure on inflation. But nonetheless, the PBOC has to keep an eye on the level, because right now the benchmark deposit rate is 3%. If inflation rises to 3%, that really cuts into the scope of the PBOC.
Yeah, but where are we with this? I mean, you know, we're talking about a slowdown taking place. We're talking about 7.5% here. It's just astonishing growth, isn't it? But it's still, you know, it's going to take ages, you know, to get into a consumption-led economy here as well. I mean, but it's still one which is down to investment spending, isn't it? And, you know, if you actually took that out, what would be China's real growth rate?
Well, I mean, to be frank, I mean, any economy needs investment growth. I think for China, the question is not to cut investment growth, but rather how to make it more efficient. So when we all talk about consumption-driven economy, but the reality in China, the bigger problem is actually the inefficient allocation of capital. So all these reform that the government is proposing is moving in the right direction, that to mend the market mechanism, to let the market grow rather than the government, you know, using their visible hands. Well,
we have the latest Purchasing Managers Index numbers as well. Yeah, what sort of picture are they painting right now? Because we've seen a slight uplift when it came to the manufacturing and non-manufacturing.
Right. So firstly, I mean, putting the official number alongside with the HSBC number, you can see that the big companies are doing, it seems big companies are doing much better than the smaller ones. I think that's a reality in China. The growth seems to be stabilizing, but not picking up very strongly. Even for the service PMI, the increase in July actually was very modest by historical standard. So.
Wei, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Just still waiting for these numbers, who haven't got them just yet, but no doubt we will, of course, get them as soon as you leave the studio, probably. Thanks a lot for that. That's Wei Yao from Societe Generale.